2023, expressing certain provisions of the open meeting law. This public meeting of the Town of Bolton Conservation Commission is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but the public can access this meeting while in progress by Zoom Video Communications, Inc. Members of the public attending this meeting virtually will be allowed to make comments if they wish to do so during the portion of the hearing designated for public comment by telephone, cell phone, or personal computer using Zoom. As always, some guidelines for participants. Please utilize the chat or raise hand function to address the board. Participants will remain on mute until they have been addressed by the board, and participants are required to display their first and last names. All of that said, per tradition, we will start with a roll call of present members. I am Brian Barabee.
Jim Garrity.
Paul Brandwolds.
Sue Mitra.
Excellent. All right. Well, first up this evening, commission members, we have, because this meeting's falling on the 1st, we should only have one other meeting this month. If we go by the 2-week thing, it would fall on the 14th. I'm not available that day, and Lauren's not available that day either. So I had discussed with Lauren possibly doing the 22nd instead. Would that work for members?
Yep.
It works for me.
I think that's fine.
Okay.
Great. Thank you.
All right. So we'll go with the 22nd. All right. That said, first up this evening, the Conservation Commission will now continue the public hearing under Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Bolton Bylaw, Chapter 233, to discuss of a notice of intent filed for 220 Berlin Road. Lauren, is the applicant or a rep for the applicant here this evening?
Yep, Doug Dillon is here tonight, and Dave Rezak, the applicant, is also here. And just so you know, Sam Bossele just joined.
Oh, excellent. So when last we met, we had set up a site visit to go out and take a look at the site. And last Friday, I believe it was the 27th, myself, Jim, and Paul were able to go out and take a look at the property and see everything staked out that we had asked for. And I'll get into that site visit in a second. I was looking to see if we had DEP comments yet, and it looks like we haven't received them. So just up front for the applicants, we'll usually wait until we hear back from DEP before we're able to kind of close a hearing. So we'll probably need to continue this. But as for right now, just to give a quick update on the site visit, the applicants had marked out everything we had asked, all right, where the accessory building's going, the pool, the fencing around the pool, the areas that would be kind of as more finished, maintained yard areas. And also were able to point out to us some of the areas that were proposed mitigation for the clearing that's already been done and also for the overall project. We did see both kind of a B and an A and a B plan, and I'll let the other commission members who were on the site visit give their thoughts in a minute. But to me, it seemed like we would be able to condition either. And I think the applicant's rep even had pointed out in the field, and I tend to agree that DEP is probably going to push us more for the one where the pool was kind of center back of the house because it's further from riverfront. Because they're not as concerned with some of our wetland bylaws, whereas we might want to push it more towards the side yard because it really kind of it's part of that wetland buffer on the, I guess, right-hand side if I'm looking into the backyard, is closer than where the riverfront comes to. So it's hard to tell. I think I would be comfortable conditioning either project. When it came to the accessory building, the proposed proposed garage, that was a previously cleared area for the most part. That's kind of maintained lawn area as it stands. I'm trying to think what else let me see. Oh, so there was a question. I kind of had a question at the end about regrading, what the grade would look like in that backyard, depending upon which plan they used, because I'm assuming the fenced area for the pool, you're going to want that flat. And then is it a drop off from there? How steep of a drop off? Is it graded down? Was one of the things that I was kind of curious about. So I guess, and again, I'll open it up to the other commission members in a minute. From where I stood, while we're still waiting for DEP comments, what I was thinking is I'd kind of like the applicant to kind of choose a plan, either plan A or plan B, to kind of put forward, so that we can kind of consider that plan in its entirety. And that if there was going to be kind of regrading necessary, to kind of get us some more information on that and what that would look like. That's kind of all I had. I'm just kind of staring at my notes, but let me open it up to commission members if there's any other comments, questions, or thoughts, and specifically Jim and Paul being out on site. Anything you noticed or general comments?
No, I agree. The applicant should pick a plan and then we can kind of condition around it, right? And I'm assuming part of the conditions will be a maintenance for the pool, as far as how you disposition the excess water or whatnot. But yeah, no, I agree. Either plan, I think.
Okay.
One thing that I meant to ask while we were there that we didn't cover, at least I don't think we did, was around the pool kind of equipment. Where is that going and how are you housing that? Is that an extra structure or is that going to be in the garage or what's the plan for that?
The applicant, one of the applicants or the rep, do you want to discuss that question or able to answer?
Sure. Yeah, I can comment on that. Yeah, so to the point that was raised earlier of sort of picking a plan, we did have some further discussion on that and everything. And the plan B, or sort of the side yard, would end up being our preferred, or if we had to pick one to further detail out, that would be the the one that we would select. That option includes basically housing of the equipment and everything, all the filter accessories, as part of the garage structure. We also have the option, if you recall, there's a screened in porch. Underneath that is a sort of low roof poured graded area that we could easily house the the pump equipment. So it would be one of those two that we could detail further easily enough.
Okay.
I think the rest of my questions are more around the restoration of the area that has been cut down. So I don't know if we want to get into that. I don't know what the planting plans are and what the getting the ratios back as best as we can from the trees that have been cut down and how we get that back.
Yeah. So, as you saw on site, there are a lot of sort of middle to young aged hardwoods there. And, again, without having seen the prior condition, it's tough to say exactly how many trees, were removed. But DEP planting criteria, there are certain densities that we can go by. But I was really trying to go for something that would mimic the existing density, just because that forest there, it's a young forest, but it seems to be doing very well. So I expect approximately a dozen, aspen, and some maybe 2 dozen or so of American hazelnut and witch hazel, various other robust shrubs, sort of flowering shrubs as well, that could provide an ecological benefit to the area. But this is the part where I was really expecting the most sort of direct feedback, because happy to work with you guys on that, specifically like if there's any particular species, right, that are available at nurseries, obviously, right, within current stocking limits. that you guys would prefer or don't like to see, that's all perfectly fine. But as proposed, like I would essentially just want to match the existing species composition as closely as we can, as well as density.
Doug, I think you sent us a planting plan, right?
Yep. Yes, I did.
So that's what the plan is, right? Am I right in
Yep.
saying that? Or
Yes.
Okay. So that in the quantity, is that accurate as to what you're going to plant on this plan here?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess the question, which is hard to answer, I presume, is like, what was there before, and how
Yeah.
does this compare to that?
So one of the times I was on site, I kind of took a visual cross section of the nearest section of forest. And I just took like a count of the species, across like a 30 by 30 area. And I just kind of extrapolated that across the currently cleared area, more or less. And that's kind of how I reached the densities that I arrived at. But I mean,
did you do a calculation based on that extrapolation?
Yep. Yeah, and that's just
Is it in your submission at all?
Yes, it is in the actual plan. Like that is what it would be.
Okay, I'll have to look at that. I didn't.
Did Doug, did they stump grind the trees they cut down?
Dave, could you chime in here? How was that particular aspect handled?
Some of them were, yeah, there was some stump grinding and some grubbing or pulling the stumps out and everything. So
Thank you.
All right. Are there any other questions or comments from members of the commission right now?
Brian, did we get an answer to your question regarding slope?
Well, as part of that, I was going to say we're basically going to need to continue because we're still awaiting DEP's comments.
Sure.
And I think this would give these guys a good chance to submit again. That it looks like you're going to go with Plan B, like the full plans for Plan B, and then to incorporate in those if there's going to be any grading or what that grading is going to look like off the back end. Does that make sense? So
yeah, absolutely.
it does.
Again, we're going to have to continue. So this would give you the 2 weeks, basically to put together that finalized plan, which would have the planting plan attached to it.
Yep.
One of the things that we look for often, we'll probably ask about, so it's worth doing now, is an operation and management plan for the pool. Basically something basic written in. It's too bad for Rebecca around. I could say she could probably find you some old orders that have it in there. Usually what we look to do is when the pool is going to need to be cleaned, it's going to need to be emptied from time to time. People think you never need to empty it, but sometimes you do. And it's basically saying that when it's emptied, it's not going to be just flushed downstream, that it's going to be removed upland. Go ahead. Are you trying to?
We had a sheet prepared for that, and I sent that to Lauren before we started the first hearing. And it said, cartridge filter with no backwash to be installed, salt chlorinator, which requires no chemicals. If pool drainage is required, water to be hauled off-site in tanker truck. Yeah. And that's on,
Okay. No, thank you for stopping, because I was like, usually we're going to want to see that.
You guys have that somewhere. You should. Yeah.
And I was going to say one thing we had just to other commission members too, it's something that like when we see the finalized plans and we're trying to discuss the mitigation to see if we're happy with the planning plans as it stands with everything. Once we see total square footage and all that good stuff. One thing we might consider as a condition is basically an ongoing condition of invasive management. One thing for commission members that weren't in the field, those of us who were, that has really started to regrow with just a lot of invasives. Bittersweet, I think, was there knotweed back there? It's a lot of just nasty stuff that it's renaturalizing with. So whereas, it's hard for us to tell what was removed so we could hit our total standards. One point of mitigation might be to set up an ongoing condition that basically stays with the property, saying you need to be doing regular invasive species management. And to the homeowner, that, hand pulling would be fine. It's not like you need to hire a company to go in and do this. It's just going through that area and ripping out bittersweet, ripping out Japanese knotweed, stuff you probably don't want there anyways. But just making sure you do that, and you mow your yard regularly. You walk through and you rip out some invasives regularly, type thing. And I say this for other commission members. This might be one way that we can consider mitigating the fact that everything was removed before we had the chance to see what was removed. Just something I'm thinking about, and we might want to consider in the final conditions.
Understood.
Okay. Are there other comments from members of the commission or questions? If not seeing any. Any members of the public here tonight to comment on this particular hearing? Again, not seeing any. So if it's all right, we're going to continue till our next public meeting. I think we hopefully walk through what we're looking for. Yep. As I say, you can be in touch with Lauren too. She can usually translate my speak. And if commission members don't have any questions right now, I'm going to make a motion that we continue the public hearing for 220 Berlin Road until our next public meeting, Tuesday, July 22nd at 7:10 p.m. Do I hear a second for continuing?
Second.
All right. All those in favor, starting with Jim.
Aye.
Paul.
Aye.
Sue.
Aye.
Sam.
Aye.
And Lauren, I'm an aye as well.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right. Next up this evening. Oh. Can we unshare Doug's screen?
I'm not seeing it as being shared right
now. Okay, no, once you spoke, it went away. Sorry, my screen was showing the last person who talked. I'm sorry.
Yep.
So, sorry, next up this evening, the Bolton Conservation Commission will now continue the public hearing under Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Bolton Bylaw, Chapter 233, to discuss the notice of intent filed for the Wilder Pond Trail Crossing. A quick update since last time, we did receive DEP comments. That's what we were waiting for. They are in your packet, or at least I think they're on the annotated agenda. Lauren listed out everything they were questioning and or asking for. Most of the things that they're questioning, I think we can easily talk through. But some of the things that they were asking to be provided, we actually need to kind of get that paperwork together and submit it. So that said, we're probably going to need to continue this tonight until we can get everything submitted to DEP and make sure we have all of their questions answered. Does that make sense to everyone? Did anybody have any questions or comments about that right now? Any members of the public here tonight to comment on that particular hearing? Drew, did you?
I haven't had a chance to talk with Lauren about it, but do we typically do the bordering vegetative wetlands assessment, like an on-site one? Does Rebecca typically do that?
Yes. Well, go ahead.
I am not sure, so I haven't experienced that yet. But Brian, you probably know better. You've actually worked with her longer. So.
And again, I shouldn't say it 100%, but yes, I think she generally does. And many of those properties we have delineations for, or understood delineations. It's a weird one that it's one that, and if they're not requiring us to give them something, which they're really not on this one, it's one that I think it's a question we can answer amongst ourselves, in that the footprint you're going in is the pretty much already established footprint. It's a minimum change to that, and it's a wetland crossing. So it's, the wetlands are smack dab in the middle of what you're planning to do, and they go out from there. A professional delineation's not going to help us with what we need to do this.
Okay.
So I think that one is perfectly fine. They did ask, wetland protection temporary permit should be quantified on a revised page 3 of the WPA Form 3. That they're asking us to revise and resubmit. That one we really can't get around, but some of those other questions I think we can answer in-house and say, no, we're comfortable without that assessment for this reason. It is a wetland crossing. It is a minimal change to the footprint.
Okay.
I think they asked about light underneath, like light penetration underneath by removing the poles. And again, it's basically the same height off the ground. It's an end-to-end connection. It's no real change in light penetration. If anything, it's increasing slightly light penetration probably. I'm not concerned about that, but it's needing to resubmit those forms is the only reason why I say we probably need to continue for now.
Yep. They did have a question about, they said, will the proposed pea gravel transitions impact the bordering vegetated wetland? Drew, have we used the pea gravel in the past?
Yeah, we used it on the Von Hills Bridge.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or many Von Hill bridges, but.
Okay.
And it was when those bridges were proposed, it was I believe I asked the question because I know it came up the same thing about, does the pea gravel really start to get kicked out? People going scuffing through, does that become a problem? And they said for the most part they hadn't found that to be a problem. Most of the places people are fairly respectful of it. It's minimal to like no real seepage. And the few trails I've been on that have those bridges, I always look and I've kind of seen this. I haven't seen really anybody, spreading it out or kicking it all out. It's
Right.
pretty contained.
Okay.
And this is like an old railway bed anyway, so it's not in any sort of, wetland sensitive area.
Like I said, I wasn't concerned with most of the questions, and their questions make good sense. But half the reason they kick it down local is because we can actually go out there and say, "Oh, this is we're good."
All right.
But yeah, it's just that form resubmittal that it's going to slow us, unfortunately.
All right. Thanks.
No problem. Any other members of the public here tonight to comment on this particular hearing? Seeing none. I'm going to make a motion that we continue the public hearing for the notice of intent for Wilder Pond Trail crossing until our next public meeting, Tuesday, July 22nd at 7:30 p.m. Do I hear a second for continuing?
Second.
All those in favor, starting with Jim,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Sue,
Aye.
Sam,
Aye.
and Lauren. I'm an aye as well.
Thank you. Brian, I'm sorry. I think it's
Right.
supposed to be 7:20, not 7:30.
I thought you said 7:20 was taken. Could be wrong.
7 o'clock was taken.
All right. So
then the last one, am I right? So,
well, it's 7:30. We can leave it at 7:30. I can sneak the next one in at 7:20, and
Sounds
that's
good.
kind of our internal one. Drew, I doubt you would need to be here at that next meeting. I'm hoping we resubmit to DPW. We talked tonight about some of the other questions they had. I think everybody was very comfortable with the project. So if we get everything submitted to DPW, my guess is we'll have minimal discussion and just be able to approve it or not approve it. But
Yep. All right. Thanks.
all right. Thanks again for coming.
Thank
and
you.
thanks for doing this too. It's appreciated.
Yeah.
Take care. So Lauren, we pulled off the vote, right? We already voted to move it to 7:30.
Yep, that's fine.
Okay. All right. All right. So how are we in time? Oh, we're good. All right. So Next up this evening, the Bolton Conservation Commission will now continue the public hearing under Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Bolton Bylaw, Chapter 233, discussing the notice of intent for Lot 2 Harvard Road, DEP file number 112-0755. Okay. So, Brandon's here tonight. So, when last we met, we had a good chance to discuss. I think everybody was fairly comfortable with the plans. You were putting together the final planting plan for mitigation. I think everybody was comfortable with that and everything. And there was the discussion of setting up the conservation easement as part of mitigation. Since then, I was going to say, Lauren, I'm not sure who you talked to in that, but we did have a discussion about accepting a conservation easement.
Yep. So I spoke with the town planner today about what that process looks like. Basically, we were talking about how if we were to incorporate a conservation easement, then we would probably need to continue this hearing just so we can get the language and so there can be discussion between the applicant and the commission about what requirements the easement would have, and getting a surveyed plan that locates the entire area that is being discussed. So yeah, that's kind of the direction we were going with that.
And I was going to say, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe too, it was one of those things that they thought we might need to announce publicly to have on the agenda that we were discussing.
Correct.
A conservation easement, and that was one of the ones that was very hard to get around. That we have to make a public notice of it, that we're going to discuss it.
Mm-hmm.
So, Brandon, where that kind of left us, and in talking with Lauren and kind of putting it in front of other commission members now, is in theory we could continue try to write out the whole, this is what's allowed there, this is what's not, publicly notice that we're going to do it, discuss it, maybe vote on it next meeting, and then vote on lot 2. In discussing it with Lauren and people looking at the different value of what a conservation easement there would mean, what it was with other things, I was wondering, and I'll put it to the commission too, if it would be possible, looking at the planting plan you did, and it looked like there were like 3 trees on the, I want to say, eastern side of the property, the eastern side of to the right-hand side of the driveway, that I'm wondering if it would be possible to increase that number of trees from maybe 3 to 6 and take the conservation easement out of it. And that would, and again, I have to put it in front of all the other commission members too, but that might allow us then to vote on it tonight instead. Does that make sense what I'm saying to you?
Yeah, I mean, if adding additional tree plantings on the opposite side there, we're open to that in lieu of doing the conservation easement.
Okay, so other commission members, just putting it out to you, because this is the first time they're hearing it too. I did talk with Lauren this afternoon when she kind of informed me that we'd probably have to wait if we were going to do an easement. I know some of the commission members weren't thrilled about the easement in the past. It does help in certain ways, but a lot of that land's wet and it doesn't really connect. Would commission members be comfortable making an adjustment tonight to increase the tree plantings and forgo the conservation easement, or would people still prefer to see a conservation easement set up? And I'm comfortable either way, but that's kind of what our 2 options are now. We can kind of have the hearing for the easement and keep that in, or we could possibly increase the tree plantings and vote on it this evening.
I think increasing the tree plantings is probably the better way of going.
Okay. Others
I
have
concur.
Okay. All right. All right. In that case, so what I would plan to do now would be to close the hearing and then to vote on it. And I'm guessing it would in theory, be a vote to issue the order of conditions as drafted and submitted this evening, with the following condition: that an additional three trees of Brandon, do you remember offhand the diameter of the three that are already on the right hand side?
I think it was 2.5.
I think a 2.5-inch caliper.
All right.
Yeah.
So an
Which is
additional
pretty substantial, yeah.
3 trees of a 2.5-inch caliber trunk or larger on the eastern side of the proposed driveway. Would that cover everything we discussed, Lauren? Does that seem to make sense? Brandon, does that seem to work?
Yep. On the east side of the driveway?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. In that case, unless, oh, and I should ask, I'm sorry, are there many members of the public here tonight to comment on this particular hearing? And not seeing any. Okay. In that case, I'm going to make a motion that we close the public hearing for Lot 2 Harvard Road, DEP file number 112-0755. Do I hear a second for closing?
Second.
All those in favor, starting with Jim,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Sue,
Aye.
Sam,
Aye.
and Lauren, I'm an aye as well.
Okay, thank you.
Gonna make a motion that we issue an order of conditions for Lot 2 Harvard Road as drafted and presented at this evening's meeting, with the following additional condition: that 3 additional trees of 2.5-inch plus 2.5-inch or greater trunk size be added to the planting plan to be set on the eastern side of the proposed driveway. Do I hear a second for issuing said order of conditions?
Second.
All those in favor, starting with Jim,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Sue,
Aye.
Sam,
Aye.
and Lauren, I'm an aye as well.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
And,
All right, take
and
care.
Brandon, if the applicant is Bob Cohen, if he's interested in, putting an easement at another point in time, he can always come before the commission to discuss that later on.
Okay. All right, great. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Excuse me. All right, so next up this evening, we have a request for a certificate of compliance for 2 Wheeler Road, DEP file number 112-507. Lauren was able to at least drive by this house to take a look.
Yep.
She also pulled the satellite photo images and was able to read through the original order of conditions. Basically, it involved kind of removing an existing driveway, making it a shorter driveway with a garage that was kind of more attached to the house, and then renaturalizing where the former driveway was removed. Based upon Lauren's driving by what she could see from the road, and I think you have some pictures in our folder, I believe.
I do. Sure, 1 minute. Just pull them up.
Please.
Okay. Yep, so I pulled the aerial images of the site. So basically this was an order of conditions from back in 2005. The homeowner is now looking to sell and realized that a certificate of compliance was never requested. So now that's why he's looking to do that. So you can see, actually, I'm going to pull up the initial plan sketch. So over here are where the wetlands are, and they had this old driveway that they removed and moved it further away from the wetlands, and it's shorter, and built a new garage. So you can see that there. Here's the aerial image. And this was taken 2025. You can see this is the old garage. This is where the old driveway used to be. It's pretty densely vegetated, as you can see here. And here's a street view as well of the area. This was the area right here. And I drove by, and it looked pretty similar as to what you're seeing now, if not a little bit denser.
So looking at the original order, basically that's what it was waiting on was a renaturalization and kind of an establishment of where the points were, the whole order of construction. So as far as I could tell, reading through the order and everything that Lauren was able to kind of see in the field via satellite, it seems like there's no reason why we wouldn't issue an order of conditions. I'm sorry, certificate of compliance. But let me put it out to commission members. People comfortable with that? Anybody need more information or have questions?
Stop.
All right. Not seeing any. I'm going to make a motion that we issue a certificate of compliance for 2 Wheeler Road DEP file number 112-507. Do I hear a second for issuance?
Second.
All those in favor, starting with Jim.
Aye.
Paul.
Aye.
Sue.
Aye.
Sam.
Aye.
And Lauren. I'm an aye as well.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. Oh, next up this evening, we had on our agenda the continued discussion of our possible vote to recommend the select board to ban the use of second-generation anticoagulant rodenticides, or SCARs. SCARs. Lauren, could you pull up the latest draft? Sure.
So, if I recall correctly, when we last left off, I think we were pretty much in agreement that SGARs or SCARs are not good, especially conservation-wise. We can understand what the problem with them is. This is something that other communities have already adopted measure or tried to adopt measures to control. And it sounded like, well, Rebecca was kind enough to put together an initial draft of what we might say, kind of saying the reason for this ban and why we're recommending it, and kind of briefly going into why SGARs are bad. There's tons of information out there. Sam was really kind to send a bunch of useful information to me. Lauren has been able to pull a bunch of useful information, and my wife has also sent me a bunch of useful information. And going through that, and from our prior conversations, it seemed like the three things that we should possibly add to this was, one, we had talked about only really licensed professionals being able to use these going forward. Generally speaking, that's the rule nationally, but some laws at the federal level can be changing from time to time, so it probably does not hurt us to codify that only professionals and no over-the-counter crazy people can be using SGARs. The second thing, coming from a lot of the information that Sam gave me and some of the stuff that Lauren was able to find, a lot of places would do it as a phase out. It's going to be a change for school departments, DPW, and all of this stuff. It's hard to do that overnight. Places need to budget for it if they're going to use alternatives. Maybe they got a budget for additional time for staff, right on down the line. So most places, most municipalities I found were doing a phase out, either 2 or 3 years. So in this draft, I think I had put 2 years. I shouldn't say 50-50. I think I looked at 5 or 6 places, and 2 of them said 2 and the other 3 said 3 years. I would imagine it's something we can do in 2, but I could be open to changing that to 3 or 10 or, whatever people feel like. But most of the things I've seen from other towns did include some sort of leeway to allow people to get ready for these changes. And then the third thing I found, and I think this was great that we were able to get the comments from Randy and from the Randy at DPW and the school system ahead of time, is that most places found it was important to grant exemption authority to somebody. Some places either did or considered like letting the select board give exemptions. You know, you could consider conservation, but I would ask us not to. But most places, I think rightfully so, went with the Board of Health, that allowing that, you know, as part of the ban, the Board of Health is able to grant exemptions. I forget, Lauren, is there any way you could blow up your screen a little bit? I'm old and blind.
Yep.
Thank you. It's basically that the last paragraph there. Exemptions granted by the Bolton Board of Health in cases where a viable alternative, where no viable alternative exists, or where public health and safety would otherwise be compromised. It looked like most municipalities think that would cover them in the cases, the very rare case it's like, oh no, we have an outbreak at the school. You know, it's either shut down the school or we need to deal with this right away. That the Board of Health can say, yes, bring in a professional, somebody who's licensed, and get it done. So those three highlighted paragraphs, I kind of stuck in language for those three things. That's what I could remember, A, from our conversations, and B, from what I was reading from different towns and different stuff online that we could find. Any comments, questions, thoughts, edits, additions, anything?
That looks good.
All right. Are people relatively comfortable with this as drafted? And sorry, Lauren, can you scroll up to the first paragraph? I just want to make sure. Is the recommendation? Okay, so it's.
Would you like to say recommendation of the Town of Bolton Conservation Commission to the Select Board?
Yes, that's exactly what I was looking for, and I really appreciate that, Lauren.
Yeah.
To the Bolton Select Board, yeah. The town hereby ban the use of second generations. And again, that all that initial language is what Rebecca had. It's a really short and sweet explanation of why these are bad generally. The second paragraph reiterates that this is just town or municipal properties. This has nothing to do with private property or individual homeowners. This is simply town-owned properties and conservation lands where we already don't use it. And then those last three paragraphs, that it has to be done by a professional. I have, again, the 2-year phase out, which everybody seemed fine with. And then the exemptions granted to the Board of Health. And then I think Rebecca had that last part in there too, but it's great to keep it. It just says 41 other Massachusetts communities have addressed this issue. Never hurts to point out that we're not the only ones that are trying to do this, and that there's plenty of other examples and information they can find if they're interested in following our recommendation. All of that said, are people comfortable with it? Comfortable with it as it's currently drafted? Is there anything you'd like to see added or changed? All right.
No, I'm fine.
Brian,
It's good to me.
I think the only question that I have is, have we talked to the Board of Health about the fact that we're naming them in this?
It's a very good point. But what I was going to, I thought about that for a half a second, and I was like, oh, shoot, we should really do that. But I guess my thinking around that is that we're recommending that the Select Board consider this. And I would hope as part of that, they would talk to the Board of Health before moving forward with it. That's kind of where I landed on that, but I do take your point. I'm more than happy. Again, there's no rush on this. We can continue it, and we can reach out to the Board of Health to make sure.
I think that we should.
Okay. Which is great.
I apologize for bringing this up kind of at the midnight hour.
No, I mean,
actually, Lauren, were they notified when we notified all the department heads?
No, I don't believe so. I specifically reached out to DPW and the schools.
So we
So,
didn't reach out to anybody else?
no, did we want to reach out to all planning and sorry, I may have missed that.
I thought that was the plan at one point, that Lauren, you were going to reach out to all of the department heads through an email or something.
Yeah,
Okay,
that was
I
my
may have.
understanding too.
I'll backtrack and see who specifically was on those emails, but I can double check on that too.
Okay. Yeah, because if we haven't included them in this conversation, I think it would make a lot of sense to include various
Yep.
department heads. I think one of the comments back from, I think it was maybe Newberry, was the fact that they were having issues with rodents in police cars. So, that might be worthwhile. Like if we haven't reached
So,
out to all of the department heads, I really think that we should.
oh, okay. I see what you're saying. I think when I had a conversation, and it was actually outside of email with some people from DPW, in the conversation, they told me that they manage the fire department and the police station. So that's why I don't think I ended up sending that email because in my head I was thinking, okay, so DPW is they're the ones who are managing these. But I
I
see your
think
point
it's
that they should
only the
actually be notified as
buildings.
well. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's only the buildings. I don't think that it's all municipal infrastructure. And our police cars are kept next to a very nice stormwater retention basin, which is a kind of a breeding ground for mice. So, and the dumpsters. So, I think that
Yep.
can be twofold there.
Sure. Okay, I can definitely do that.
Thank you.
Yep. And I apologize for not doing that sooner.
No. You're totally good. Thank you for doing that. You've been
Yep,
doing
no
a lot of
problem.
legwork for this.
Yeah, no problem.
All right.
So sorry, Brian, just confirming, are we reaching out to all department heads or are we just reaching out to police and fire?
I can send out to all and include
Okay.
Board of Health on that.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Thank you, Lauren.
Yeah, I may actually just send a separate email specifically to Board of Health noting that we are including them in this and to see if they have any feedback on that.
That would be awesome. Thank you.
Yep.
That's excellent. Any other questions or comments? It sounds like we have our next steps planned out for this. Right. Anything else that that we should look into, and again, it seemed like everybody was kind of comfortable with the wording right now. All right. So let's see. This was just a discussion. We don't need to officially continue this, but we will continue this at our next meeting. And we will take it from there. I have so next up on our agenda, I was going to say, unless anybody has any additional comments, I should ask any members of the public here to comment on our SGAR plan discussion. And again, seeing none. Okay. In that case, moving on. I have no current updates on our enforcement orders other than that most of them seem to be moving along towards compliance. In our package, you should see the minutes for the May 6, 2025 meeting. If you have looked through them, any edits, corrections, or changes? If you have not, does anybody need more time to look through the minutes? This is for May 6th, 2025. Seeing no corrections or changes, I'm going to make a motion that we approve the minutes for our May 6, 2025 meeting as drafted and submitted at this evening's meeting. Do I hear a second for May 6th meetings?
Second.
All those in favor, starting with Jim.
Aye.
Paul.
Abstain. I wasn't there.
That's right. Sue.
Aye.
Sam.
Aye.
And Lauren, I'm an aye as well. All right, commission members, you will also see in that packet our June 17th, 2025 meeting minutes. If you've read through them, any edits, corrections, or changes to the June 17th, 2025 meeting minutes? If not, does anybody need more time to read through the June 17th, 2025 meeting minutes? In that case, I'm going to make a motion that we accept the minutes. I'm going to make a motion that we approve and accept the minutes for our June 17th, 2025 meeting of the Bolton Conservation Commission as drafted and submitted at this evening's meeting. Do I hear a second for 6/17/2025 minutes?
Second.
All right. All those in favor, Jim, starting with Jim,
Aye.
Paul,
Abstain again.
Sue,
Aye.
Sam,
Aye.
and Lauren, I'm an aye as well.
Thank you.
No updates on the Forest Legacy program, as far as I know. Again, that's moving forward slowly. No real updates on our authorized trail projects. As a final reminder, the Learn to Fish Clinic, co-hosted with Mass Wildlife at Bowers Springs, is on Thursday, July 3rd, and I believe there are over 30 individuals signed up already.
Actually, I think we're close to 40 at this point.
40, yep. This is excellent. I mean, it seems like I think it was popular in years past. It's a nice spot for it. They get some really great people out there to work with young people and older people. So thank you to everyone involved. Happy to see that coming. Our volunteer land steward position, sadly still available, and we do have one coveted spot on the Conservation Commission available. Lauren, that is everything I am seeing on my agenda. Did I miss anything this evening?
I think you covered it all.
That's excellent. Commission members, any new business, anything you would like to discuss this evening or add to our next agenda? Seeing none. I'm going to make a motion that we hereby adjourn the Tuesday, July 1st, 2025 meeting of the Bolton Conservation Commission. Do I hear a second for adjourning?
Second.
All those in favor, starting with Jim.
Aye.
Paul.
Aye.
Sue.
Aye.
Sam.
Aye.
And Lauren, I'm an aye as well.
Hi, thank you.
All right. Thank you all so much. And
Thank
see you in
you.
3 weeks.
Have a good night.
3 weeks.
All right.
Happy
Sounds
4th
good.
to everybody.
Thanks.
Right.
Happy 4th.
Happy 4th.
Bye.
Recording stopped.